So, after all the news and the rumors of Ben Roethlisberger probably having his last season this year in a Pittsburgh Steelers uniform, and with a game last night in which he, didn't have an incredibly terrible statistical game, but still lost pretty handedly to a Minnesota Vikings team that isn't incredible, it's time to start wondering who the next quarterback is going to be for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And obviously, there's been some names thrown out that you probably know of, but let's go ahead and go. In my opinion, the best way to do this is to go one by one every single quarterback who has either made a start this year or who has been the majority starter for their team so far this season. So let's get right into it. The first list of names I'm going to rattle off is going to be guys who are going to be a no because their team is just not going to trade them. This is names like Mac Jones, Kyler Murray, Zach Wilson, Tom Brady, Josh Allen, Trevor Lawrence, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Justin Fields, and Dak Prescott. Now, none of these guys are going to be traded in the offseason, I think, no matter what. The only guy who I could see maybe getting traded is maybe... No, actually, no. None of these guys are getting traded. So that's just a no off rip for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now you have a no list of guys who are just not probably good enough to replace Ben Roethlisberger. As bad as Ben Roethlisberger has probably been over this past year and a half, probably 2.5 years of football, some of these guys are even worse than what Ben Roethlisberger has done. Now, those names include Jimmy Garoppolo, Jared Goff, Taylor Heineke, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Daniel Jones, Sam Darnold, Andy Dalton, Teddy Bridgewater, Tyrod Taylor, Davis Mills, Trevor Siemian, Case Keenum, Jacoby Brissett, and Jameis Winston. Now, the only guy who I would consider in this spot that could maybe replace Ben Roethlisberger is maybe Ryan Fitzpatrick, and that's just because he's a low-budget option, a perfect bridge quarterback, who if he plays one more year, it's going to be his 1 year with the team as a starting quarterback. And he probably gives you the option halfway through the year. If you do draft a quarterback in the first or second round, he gives you the option of playing him halfway through the year and, possibly seeing if you have something with that high draft pick that you use on the quarterback. Now, this is going to be a shorter list than the last two. This is going to be the list of guys who I think would be an okay replacement for Ben Roethlisberger. And that list is 4 names. Right now it's Derek Carr, Ryan Tannehill, Tua Tagovailoa, and Matthew Stafford. Now, the only guy on here who I would think is probably not going to get traded out of those 4 to Pittsburgh is Matthew Stafford. That's just because LA has invested so much into Matt Stafford that it's probably no point in trading him at this point. But Derek Carr, I think, would be an okay replacement. He's not the greatest quarterback in the world, but he's always going to be statistically one of the top quarterbacks in the league. Now, notice what I'm saying there is statistically Derek Carr is one of the best quarterbacks in the league, but he is far from being a top 5. I wouldn't even consider him a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Ryan Tannehill is another one of those guys who, he's probably not going to put up the same statistics as Derek Carr, but he's in that same realm of not being one of the best quarterbacks in the league, even though statistically he puts up better numbers than some guys. Tua Tagovailoa, I think, would be one of the better options out of these guys because he gives them the option of rebuilding around a quarterback who in Miami has not been given a fair shake. And you put him in Pittsburgh with a team that actually will hold him accountable and with a fan base who actually respects and understands the everyday, day-to-day life of a professional player in that city. I think Tua Tagovailoa would thrive in that system, and he would love being in Pittsburgh. Now, next up, I'm going to go one by one in this list. You probably already know of a few of the guys that are going to be on this list, but maybe a couple of them you haven't really thought of. The first one I'm going to talk about is Jalen Hurts. Now, Philadelphia has been in this Deshaun Watson rumored, trading for Deshaun Watson over the past year or so. If they do end up trading for Watson and Houston decides not to take Jalen Hurts back from Philly, which would be a weird decision, but I could see them doing that. I could really see Pittsburgh making a move for Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts has proven that he could be the guy for the Philadelphia Eagles, much like Tua Tagovailoa is doing this year. Jalen Hurts, after starting very, very shakily, has been a very consistent quarterback over the past few weeks and has led the Philadelphia Eagles to a decent record. Next up, we got Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield, another guy who is really not being given a fair chance in Cleveland. You have to understand, if you're a Cleveland Browns fan, and if you're going at Baker Mayfield's neck right now, you have to understand what Baker Mayfield brought your franchise back from. He brought your franchise back from being 1-31, or maybe 0-31-1 in 2 seasons of play. That's how good Baker Mayfield has been. He brought you to a playoff win against the Pittsburgh Steelers, a division rival last year. Yes, they're 6-7 or 6-6 right now, but guess what? That's a whole hell of a lot better than being 0-16. So I think Pittsburgh would actually really respect bringing in Baker Mayfield, because they actually respect their players when they do well. And again, Baker Mayfield, if he can bring a franchise from being in the depths of hell like the Cleveland Browns were, imagine what he would be able to do with an actually established franchise who has a good defense, who has a good skilled group, who has a good coach, who has a good franchise, who has a good fan base. Baker Mayfield would, again, like I said with Jalen Hurts or Tua Tagovailoa, would probably thrive in Pittsburgh. Next up, I don't know if this guy is going to get to Pittsburgh, because we just don't know. There just hasn't been the rumors of Pittsburgh, and that's Deshaun Watson. Now, obviously, Deshaun Watson is probably going to get traded over this offseason. If he doesn't, my understanding would be that Deshaun Watson almost is going to have wasted 2 years of his professional prime, and that's just not a good look for him. But yeah, Deshaun Watson is probably a probable option for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It probably wouldn't take a lot for them, especially with this Chase Claypool situation. You would almost guarantee that Chase Claypool is probably going to get traded this offseason, especially when you consider they're going to get Juju Smith-Schuster back. If he does decide to come back to Pittsburgh, they're going to have a lot of options at that wide receiver position, like Deontay Johnson and James Washington, as well as possibly drafting another wide receiver in the draft, like maybe someone like a Chris Olave or someone in that realm of the wide receiver group. But I think Deshaun Watson would be a decent option for them. Again, we don't know what's going to happen with the legal situation and if he would even accept the trade to Pittsburgh, but it would be a good move for him to do so. Another guy who, again, I don't know if he's going to get to Pittsburgh because it just hasn't been rumored, but Russell Wilson. I think if you put Russell Wilson in this Pittsburgh offense with a good offensive line, with a good wide receiver and tight end skill group, and with a up-and-coming running back, this would be an offensive system that we have never seen Russell Wilson play with. Yes, he's played with a great running back in Marshawn Lynch. Yes, he's played with great wide receivers like DK Metcalf, Doug Baldwin, Golden Tate, Tyler Lockett. But he's never played with everything at once. He's never played with a tight end as productive as Pat Freiermuth has been, even in his rookie season. He's never played with a running back who he's gotten to grow and develop with, like a Najee Harris. He's never played with wide receivers who are just down the field burning people, like a Chase Claypool if he still stays in Pittsburgh, like Juju Smith-Schuster if he still plays in Pittsburgh, like James Washington, like Deontay Johnson. This would be a skill group that I think Russell Wilson would love. It would be a lot like Tom Brady taking his talents to Tampa Bay. Russell Wilson going to Pittsburgh would automatically make Pittsburgh one of, if not the best team in the AFC. Now, the Aaron Rodgers situation with Pittsburgh, understand that it's a sexy move for Aaron Rodgers to go to the team that he beat in the Super Bowl a few years back when he was the best quarterback in the NFL, and go to a team that he probably would win a championship with if he went there. Like I've been saying with every single quarterback I've brought up, good offensive line, good defense, good running back, good wide receiver group, good tight end, good head coach, good franchise history. But I just don't see it happening because I just don't see it happening. I don't see Pittsburgh pulling the trigger on that move, and I don't see Pittsburgh actually trying to pull the trigger on that move because I think at the end of the day, even though Aaron Rodgers does want out, he's not in the exact position to kind of hold the cards because Green Bay does not. I don't think Green Bay is going to trade Aaron Rodgers. That would be one of the worst trades in NFL history. Getting rid of Aaron Rodgers would be a terrible move. But if he does go to Pittsburgh, like I just said about Russell Wilson, they would probably be the best team in the AFC. So this leaves 2 quarterbacks that I have not talked about yet, and 2 quarterbacks who, yes, they might not be as big of a name, as sexy as a name as Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, or any of the other guys I brought up, but I think if you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, you should start getting comfortable with the fact that your quarterback next season might be someone by the name of Matt Ryan or someone by the name of Kirk Cousins. Now, Kirk Cousins just destroyed your team last night. I think that goes a long way in earning it seems weird, but if I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, I think that would go a long way in terms of me having my respect earned for Kirk Cousins. I just watched him torch a team that has notoriously had a good defense. And he did it somewhat easily. And Kirk Cousins, for everything that he gets thrown at him, whether it's fair or unfair, all he does is play, and all he does is play well. Whether his running back is out, whether his wide receivers are slandering his name on and off the field, whether his team just doesn't fully stand behind him in certain moments, all Kirk Cousins does is ball out. And he has been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL this season. You cannot tell me that Kirk Cousins is not a top 3 quarterback right now with the way he has been playing. Just look at his touchdown to interception ratio, look at his yards per game, look at his quarterback rating, any statistic you want to bring up. Kirk Cousins has been the man in Minnesota, and he deserves to go to a team that would compete. And I think right now Pittsburgh, they would make a lot of noise if they had Kirk Cousins as their quarterback. Now, the other guy that I brought up, Matt Ryan, I think that is a really professional move by Pittsburgh if they do this. It would be a lot like the Arizona Cardinals getting Kurt Warner a few years ago when they went to the Super Bowl, and it eventually did lose to the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I see that being a very similar move. You get a guy who has been to a Super Bowl in Matt Ryan, like Kurt Warner has been. Even though Kurt Warner did win the Super Bowl, you'd say that Matt Ryan has just been to the Super Bowl. A guy who has been an MVP before, a guy who has led multiple offenses to sky-high numbers and records, a guy who is used to playing with a lot of targets. When Matt Ryan came into the league, he had to deal with Roddy White playing with Julio Jones and Tony Gonzalez coming to the team and having running backs like Michael Turner and all these guys. He's dealt with a locker room that has had a lot of big personalities, a lot of very productive players who deserve to have the ball in their hands. And I think with that being said, he's probably the best candidate to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers and try to lead them to their next Super Bowl run.